I wanted to make a couple of comments in relation to Mr Prakash. There's obviously a lot of misinformation that's being peddled at the moment, and I want to clarify just the process for you, if you like, just by way of background or for your information. The way in which the law operates is that there is, in the case where an allegation has been made about somebody, that they've been a member of or part of a terrorist organisation conducting themselves with terrorist activities, that is a self-renouncing act. So it's not actually a decision of the Minister of the day that somebody has committed certain offences in the name of ISIL in the Middle East, for example. The person needs to be over the age of 14, and we need to be satisfied that the person is not going to be rendered stateless by the removal of their Australian citizenship. The way in which it operates, and again, Mr Newman and others frankly should have this basic comprehension, but the way in which it operates is that there is a Citizenship Loss Board made up of Deputy Secretaries from several departments, including my Department of Home Affairs, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, the AG's department, obviously a very significant input as well from ASIO, from the Australian Federal Police and from others as well. So the Citizenship Loss Board looks at each of these individual cases. There have been 12 now where people have, through their own actions, seen their, and breaking of their allegiance to our country, seen their citizenship loss take place. So the Citizenship Loss Board examines all of the available information. It might be holdings in relation to an individual in Syria or Iraq or Afghanistan, for example. They will go through each element of that case, and they then provide information to me, and I can determine as the Minister for Home Affairs whether or not I want to accept that or not. And in the case of Mr Prakash, clearly we did, because as we allege, he is involved in a fairly serious way in terrorist type activity in the Middle East. So that's the way in which the process works. That process is obviously informed by legal advice from the Australian Government Solicitor or AGD. The advice to the government in relation to Mr Prakash, as I'm advised, is clear in relation to his Fijian citizenship. Now, Fiji was notified of this case before it was made public, and we will continue to work with the Fijians. But the legal advice, as I say, as I'm advised, is clear in relation to the operation of law in Fiji, and we'll work through that. So that's the way in which it operates, and hopefully that provides you with some clarity. Now, I've been Minister for Home Affairs just over 12 months. I couldn't understand why Mr Shorten hadn't appointed Mr Newman, my shadow, as the Shadow Minister for Home Affairs. But it's abundantly clear today. I mean, Mr Newman was reckless at best, likely incompetent, and clearly doesn't have any comprehension of the process or the way in which these laws operate. It is the case that when Labor were in power, there was no such law to strip terrorists of their Australian citizenship, and we have introduced that law, and now 12 people have gone from being Australian citizens to having lost their Australian citizenship. So again, some of the comments today by Mr Newman are frankly embarrassing, and it's no wonder that he hasn't been appointed, frankly, the Shadow Minister for Home Affairs. So Mr Shorten needs to say, I think today, whether or not he's got confidence in Mr Newman and whether or not he's going to appoint Mr Newman as the Shadow Minister for Home Affairs. We're 6 months away from an election. It's still unclear as to whether or not Mr Shorten would appoint in his government, if he's elected, whether he would appoint Mr Newman to be the Minister for Home Affairs. And it's a fair point to make, it's a fair question to ask, and Mr Shorten should answer it. All right, any questions?
Are you saying categorically then that Prakash is Fijian?
Well, I'm saying that the legal advice available to the government, based on all of the intricate detail and fact of this particular matter, is that Mr Prakash is, by operation of law, a citizen of Fiji. And as I say, the Fijians were advised some time ago, and we've been working with the Fijians, and we'll continue that relationship. Fiji, as you know, is an incredibly important partner on many levels. We respect the Fijians. We understand them, in a way that few other countries do, because of the history that we have together, and we'll continue to work closely with the Fijians. But the legal advice, as I'm advised, provided by the government solicitor to the Citizenship Loss Board leaves us no doubt in relation to Mr Prakash's citizenship. Now, there is an appeal process that's available to Mr Prakash, and that's up to him as to whether or not he avails himself of that process. Ultimately, these matters can be tested in the court, which is as it should be, and courts can decide these matters, but the legal advice that we've relied upon, as I'm advised, is clear. The other point to make is that Mr Prakash is sitting in a Turkey jail at the moment. He's been there for some time. I think from memory the jail term was between 5 and 10 years. The Americans and the Brits and others, as I'm advised, have an interest in him as well. Prakash is not coming anywhere near our part of the world anytime soon. He's going to be in a jail cell for a very long time, and so he should, because he's been involved in some very serious criminal activity.
Is that advice based purely on his father's citizenship?
Well, I'm not going into the legal advice, but suffice to say, the deputy secretaries from the departments sit on these cases. They go through it in detail. They take the legal advice as you would expect. We confer where it's appropriate with partners, and all of that intelligence, information otherwise, is gathered. It's considered by the Citizenship Loss Board, and that's the process that it's gone through. They've relied on the legal advice from AGD, and that's as you would expect it to be.
What happens if Fiji comes back and says he's not?
Well, again, there's an appeal process for Mr Prakash because of his own conduct in 2016. We allege that through his own conduct, he's essentially self-renounced through his actions his Australian citizenship. Prakash is a bad person. I don't know why Labor need to side on the side of people like Prakash over Australians. It's very clear that Mr Prakash is a dangerous individual. I've taken a decision, and we've made a determination in relation to this particular case. Prakash is rotting in a jail at the moment, and I hope he's there for a long period of time to come. But for Labor to suggest that somehow the secretaries or the deputy secretaries of the department don't know what they're doing or don't have an understanding of the process or wouldn't have relied upon legal advice, as I said before, is reckless. It's quite irresponsible, and frankly at the moment people should be hearing a united message from both the government and the opposition in relation to the operation of this very serious area of law. And it's clear that Mr Newman is not up to the task, which is why he's not been named as the Shadow Minister for Home Affairs in 12 months. And Mr Shorten, I don't think, can have confidence in Mr Newman after his performance today. But it is a bad message for Labor to be out there trying to play politics with national security, and I think they should be called out for it.